everybody. Welcome back to Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert. I'm your host, Gene Jackson. And as always, it is my pleasure to introduce the man you came to hear, Dangerous Doug Gilbert. Doug, how you doing?
Hey, Gene, I'm doing great, man. Hey, I have got one of my best friends in the wrestling business on here with us tonight. And that would be none other than Downtown Bruno.
Bruno,
hey,
how you doing,
happy
buddy?
and proud to be here with one of my best friends there, Doug Gilbert. The whole Gilbert family's been close friends of mine pretty much my whole time in the business. So this is an honor and a privilege to be on here.
Well, man, we're glad to have you. We've been on quite the roll here lately, Doug. We've had some really great guests. You've been knocking it out of the park.
Oh, yeah. I think everybody's been real good. And Bruno and myself, my brother, my dad, we all think a lot of Bruno. And, I mean, me and Eddie and Bruno, we've done a lot of stuff together.
Sure did. We sure did. And I'll tell you one of the funniest things ever. Tommy Gilbert, Doug's dad, as y'all probably know, listeners. One day we were in Owensboro, Kentucky, and I was back in the back, and it was you, and if you remember, you and your dad was wrestling. I don't remember who it was, but two good guys. And
Was it
I wouldn't know what to do with the match. Tommy said, Bruno, just in the middle of the match, just run down, jump over the top rope, run around the ring, and run to the back. So I said, okay, if you want me to. And in his grave right now, Eddie Marlin don't know why I did
that. That's great. And that's not like my dad is, Bruno.
Yeah, we were having fun that night. It was like a crappy house. And he's just run down, jump in the ring, look around, and run away.
Hey, it wasn't the Harris boys, was it?
It might have been. I swear I couldn't swear it to you, but it might have been. And there was Owensboro, Kentucky. I think it was 1988, if I'm not mistaken.
Right. I think it might have been the Harris brothers.
Yeah, for some reason,
Or you know what?
At the match, he wanted to do something to screw it up, you know.
Yeah. It was either Harris brothers or Jeff and Billy.
It was probably the Harris brothers because Jeff and Billy and y'all would have had a good match. Where the Harris brothers, nice guys, but they weren't exactly the
There you
best workers
go.
in the world.
Hey, I think it was the Harris brothers, actually.
Yeah, because I had just came back. I had been in Alabama. And I had just came back.
Right.
So tell us a little about that, Bruno. How did you like it down in Alabama compared to the Memphis territory?
Oh, I mean, I enjoyed my time in Alabama. I mean, I was with the good crew, and it was good houses at the time, and I was making decent money. I wasn't getting rich, but I enjoyed it down there. And plus it's close to home. Like the furthest I ever went from home was Kansas City before I went to WWF, because I wanted to keep a place in Memphis or in, Memphis area, and I wanted to be able to come back. When you're way off in Kansas City or something, it's hard. So I enjoyed Alabama. I came home twice a week.
And so down there, recently, a guy that was a great friend of both of you guys, Sid, passed away, and me and Doug did a whole episode talking about Sid. And I know you and Sid were very close, and that's who you were, one of the guys that you were managing down there in Alabama. Tell me a little bit about managing a very, very young in the business Sid.
Well, let me tell you what the deal was. I was in Kansas City working for Bob Geigel. Dude, this was 1986. And we just weren't making a whole lot of money out there. And what it was, Bob Geigel says one of the referees quit or left or whatever. And he says, Bruno, we're not making a whole lot of money. We've already got Brenda Britton, who was Rick Rogers, his wife, managing. He goes, Bruno, budget's tight. It's hard for me to pay two managers. He goes, why don't we do a deal where we switch you out and we can make you the referee? Well, I didn't want a referee, which I know I made the right decision because I ended up doing pretty well, in the business as a manager. Right.
But I'd say, Bruno, I don't mean to interrupt, but I'd say you've done very well.
Well, I appreciate that. And but the thing is, at that time, I was still only in the business like 7 years or whatever. So I it was like one hand, make a living. The other hand, I want to advance in the business, which, like you said, thankfully, thank God I did. But I didn't want to stay on it and referee. So I gave him my notice. And then I started calling around. I wasn't ready to come back to Memphis yet because things were kind of slow in Memphis at the time. I called Robert Fuller to come to Alabama. He goes, I'd love to bring you in. He goes, I want to put you with a big old giant guy with the hockey mask and the Lord Humongous gimmick. I said, who is he? He goes, it's up to you to find him. He says, you find me that guy and you got a starting date.
Oh, wow.
I had met Sid years ago. See, there was a guy named Jeff Van Cant that I think Eddie knew.
Right.
Used to be the gimmick.
Yeah,
he was quit the business.
Yeah, he was the one that was from Florida that worked for Watts for Eddie.
Yes. Well, so he quit the business and became a cop or FBI agent.
Yeah, he was a police officer.
Yeah. So I remembered Sid. I had met him a few times in Memphis. And I had, remember back then there was no cell phones or nothing. It was hard, but I tracked him down. Want to know, was he interested in going full time in the business? He was doing construction in Memphis at the time. And he said, yeah. Long story short, that's how Sid got his start full time in the business. We went there as Lord Humongous, and he was very green, very, very green at the time. And Robert Fuller put him with Danny Davis every night. Who Danny we just seen, all of us seen the other day at the
exactly
in Jackson, Tennessee. So he worked with Danny every night, and that's how he learned to work with Danny Davis. So that's how Sid got his start. That's how I was, he was the first guy I managed in that territory.
There's two guys that really helped Sid out then. That's Downtown Bruno and my brother Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert.
Oh, yeah. Your brother Hot Stuff Eddie Gilbert's the one that brought him to WCW and started his national
exactly
exposure.
But you brought him to Alabama and got him started. So
right.
That's it. Gene, that says the two most important guys was Downtown Bruno and my brother.
And he never forgot that because he always, every interview I ever heard with Sid, he always put over Bruno and he always put over Eddie and always said he owed his career to those guys. So he certainly never forgot it.
Yeah.
And Doug will tell you this is no secret. Sid was very, very moody and he could get upset easily, but he could get over it too, and it's just how he was. And you have to consider the source with everything. That's just how he was. That was his personality.
And myself and Bruno, we went to Sid's funeral together.
Yeah.
So that was
his son Gunner, who was a really nice young man.
Yeah. Oh, he's a really nice young man and everything. But I was glad me and Bruno went together to that.
Yeah, we sure did. We sure did. And I'll tell you, honestly, talking about Sid, he never forgot people that helped him along the way. Eddie Gilbert, as we just said, brought him to WCW. And, Robert Fuller booked Sid real good when he was in Alabama. So Sid brought Robert Fuller to WCW. Remember, he called him Colonel Parker.
Right.
And he got Robert in over there. And, hey, Sid didn't forget me. He's the one that got me my tryout in 1989 with WWF. So, luckily enough, at that time I was already finished.
And Bruno, I told Gene this when we was talking about Sid the other day that Sid got you your tryout, but you kept your job. Everybody says different things, but you was the one that had to keep your job, and you did.
Well, I appreciate it, but that's how the business is, and this. Anybody can open a door for you, but it's up to you to stay in that thing.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And Vince McMahon is not the type of guy that's going to say, oh, just because you're Sid's friend, you can stay. Well, how come after Sid left, I kept staying? It wasn't because they're trying to make Sid happy. He wasn't even there no more. I just,
right.
I
hey,
like we all have.
Hey, I'm going to tell you, I love the Alabama territory also, Gene. It was cool. I mean, Bruno loved it. I loved it. I mean, hey, Bruno, tell Gene the story about the apartment that we all had.
Yeah, we all David Woods, who owned the territory, he bought it from Ronald Fuller and them. It was over on Bonaparte Boulevard in Montgomery, Alabama. And It was a free apartment. We all stayed in there. It looked like a dadgum tobacco road. It was me and Jerry Stubbs and Terry Sims and the Ring Crew. It was like, and Mick Foley, Cactus Jack at the time. We were all in this, and the only thing we had to do was pay the phone bill and the utilities. And you know damn well a bunch of wrestlers, we ended up in the dark with no phone.
Well, at least when I was there, Bruno, we had electricity, so that was a good thing. But Sid was there when I was there and everything. But I was telling Gina, it was like me, Sid. I was trying to think. Piz Wadley would stay there with us. I mean, there was like 5 or 6 of us and everything. I mean, it was cool. And remember, Sid had his room upstairs and everything.
Right.
It was really cool deal.
Yeah, when I was there, it was me, Jerry Stubbs, Cactus Jack. It was Mick Foley.
And listen to that talent, Gene.
Yes.
Listen to what Bruno's saying. That talent. And Jerry Stubbs was a great worker, wasn't he, Bruno? I've told you.
Oh yeah, he was built like a dadgum, bodybuilder at one point, and a good
right.
What a
Mr. Olympia.
It was me, Jerry Stubbs, Mr. Olympia. Dennis Condrey was there.
Right.
Like Doug said, Pez Watley was there. We had a hell of a crew there. And of course, when Eddie Gilbert came in,
Bruno,
Danny Davis, and Wendell Cooley, Frankie Lancaster. I mean, Ronald Fuller, Jimmy Golden. To me, is one of the most underrated talents.
Oh yes,
was. I think Jimmy Golden was tremendous work.
Hey, I've said that to you, Gene, haven't I, about Jimmy Golden?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
we talked a lot about Jimmy Golden and Jerry Stubbs. We're gonna track Jerry Stubbs down and get him on the show because me and Doug's put over Jerry Stubbs as much as we have anybody, and I think that'd be a fun conversation to have.
Yeah, that'd be good. Hey, he taught me as much or more, Bruno. I mean, Eddie put me in the program with him and everything. We worked around the loop and everything. I mean, he was just so smooth and everything. It was crazy.
Oh yeah, great worker. He could talk. He could work.
And I mean,
sensitive about the wig. Remember, because he had that hairpiece. He finally.
Yeah. But I mean, I watched him and Eddie go 60 minutes one night, and it was a mask versus hair match. His mask versus Eddie's hair, and they went 60 minutes straight through, and Eddie beat him, and he went to pull his mask off, and he pulled his mask off, and he added another one under it, and the people popped like crazy.
Oh,
but that shows how
good guy.
That shows how good of shape he was in, though. 2 masks on for 60 minutes.
And especially those Mr. Olympia masks, because they had those screens on them. One of those would be hot as all get out, but 2 of those for an hour? Right. Holy.
But people pop. So in other words, Eddie was the bad guy in that one, evidently.
Well, exactly. He was always the bad guy.
Right. I was going to say, because you could do it the other way, too. If Stubbs was the bad guy, he'd be like, screw you, Eddie Gilbert. I'm smarter.
Yeah.
You could get away. It would work.
Right. But I thought that was such a cool angle and everything. And then I got to work with him after Eddie did. So that was really cool.
Right. Yeah, I'm going to tell you. And I'm saying this out of all honesty. I'm not just saying it because Doug's sitting here. It's the truth. Eddie Gilbert had one of the most creative minds for the business of anybody I've ever worked for and with. I mean, he understood the business. I mean, to me, some of the top minds in the business, Eddie Gilbert's one of them. Jim Cornette's one of them. Jerry Lawler's one of them. Robert Fuller's one of them. Some of these guys just, they get it. Some people know what they're doing. They don't know how to portray it or explain it to somebody else. Those are some of the guys. There's others too. But those are some of the guys that really know how to create talent. Right.
You're exactly right, Bruno.
I've always said, Bruno, I think that if Eddie were still around today, he would have been a huge part of like the Monday Night Wars era as far as the creative side of wrestling. Like he was ahead of his time. Like if you go back and look at a lot of those angles, they were great, but they were kind of ahead of their time. I think he would have been an even bigger impact on the business creatively in the 90s and on into the 2000s. even beyond what he did as a wrestler and the booking he did in the 80s. Do you agree with that, or am
I don't dispute that one bit. You're right.
You know, the only thing, Bruno, that y'all are probably right, but could Eddie deal with like 4 or 5 people booking how he liked to book his style? That's the only thing
that's the problem. You're right. I agree. That's you got one guy that wrote for Search for Tomorrow, and then the next guy that wrote for Dadgum,
right.
Three's Company or whatever.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
True.
But I mean, I think like you are saying, Eddie could have done it and everything, but he thought, Bruno, Eddie and Gene, you didn't know it, but Bruno did. Eddie thought wrestling 24 hours a day, didn't he, Bruno?
Oh my God, yeah, all the time, and which was good because back then, I'll be honest with you, back in those days, we all did. I don't know more. I love
exactly.
Everything I got.
I mean, we thought it working wise, and he thought it working wise, but he thought it booking wise all the time. That's
right. Yeah, I know. I mean, Eddie used to tell me when he was a kid, he would make out, make believe cards, almost like the fantasy football they do now, or whatever.
Right.
He would do that. So yeah, believe me, and I'll tell you another thing too. Since we're just going down memory lane, Tommy Gilbert, Doug's dad, he was down here doing some type of work after he got out of the business.
Pipelining. He was pipelining. Yeah.
Yeah.
And he'd go see
Friday night.
Yeah, he'd go see Bruno. Him and Bruno would meet and everything. My dad loved Bruno.
Oh, I loved him. My Uncle Larry, who you met before he passed away now, me and Tommy Gilbert and my Uncle Larry, every Friday night, we would go down to Horseshoe Casino because George Klein was the head of
George. Yes, sir.
Or whatever there.
And
buffet every week.
You know what? Last time I seen George, Bruno, me and my wife was on a flight to Las Vegas, and we were sitting first class, and George was right across from me. And I said, George. And he said, Doug? And I said, yes, sir. And everything. And George was such a cool guy, wasn't he, Bruno?
Oh, a super guy. Like I said, he got me and Uncle Larry and Tommy Gilbert free buffet every Friday night. That's like a $35 buffet. Every Friday
you can't beat that. Hey, Bruno, you can't beat that, can you?
And we just sit and visit with him and laugh and talk to him, what a super guy.
Hey, Bruno, what about the stories he told, George Klein? He had great stories.
Oh, my God. Like, Elvis kept them from going to prison. Y'all know that, right?
Right.
Oh, wow.
Hey, what was that story, Bruno?
Well, this is all just what I'm hearing, you know what I mean? But basically, back years ago, I don't think it works that way now, all this streaming service and whatnot. But back then, everything was just the radio. So George was accused of taking money. He was a disc jockey in Memphis, big major disc jockey.
Oh, he was the major disc
the main one.
Yeah.
Yeah. So there was a thing called payola. Like different record companies would pay him, make sure you play, like if me and Doug had a group, play Bruno and Doug's record. Here's X amount of, make sure you play Bruno and Doug's record, get it built up. So apparently that was illegal. And he was accused of that. They were going to put him in prison or something for it. But somehow Elvis got him out of it. I don't know the whole story, but it's along those lines.
If I want somebody to get me out of somebody, it would have been Elvis, wouldn't it?
You ain't lying.
No kidding.
You ain't lying.
So, Bruno, you managed, everybody who's anybody throughout your career. And not to say one's better than the other, whatever. But who are some of your favorites as far as when you think back on, just like the most fun? Who's some of the guys you managed you had the most fun managing?
Here in Memphis, the most fun I ever had, without a doubt, was Phil Hickerson. We traveled together. We drank beer together. And back then I smoked cigarettes. Me and him would smoke cigarettes. That's all we did was drink, smoke, and eat. Me and him had a great rapport at ringside. In other words, he could look at me without even speaking and just like nod his head a certain way. I knew he wanted me to trip the guy or get the referee or whatever. So me and him had like this ESP between him. Me and him
Bruno,
had a great thing.
Hey, Bruno, Phil, the first angle in the business that I did was with Phil, right?
No, I didn't know that.
Did you not? Gene, did you know that?
Yeah, that's like you was a teenager, right? You were out there taking pictures, isn't that the deal?
Yeah. Remember the new Fabs, Tommy, Rich, and Eddie Gilbert against the Spoiler and Phil Hickerson. And I was taking pictures and everything, and Phil come out and went to grab my camera out of my hand, and he knocked it in my nose and busted my nose. But Phil was great. I loved Phil. We traveled together and everything, Bruno, to a lot of shows and everything. I loved Phil. I mean, when they I didn't work against him or nothing, but when they did the Legend shows, when the Hall of Fame shows, when they put him in that, he rode with me to Louisville and everything. And I mean, I always stayed in touch with him. Phil don't live about 20 miles from me, and Phil is a great guy. Phil is great. Very close. Very close. Yeah. Phil's a great guy.
I bet Phil's got a ton of stories. Favorites.
And I'll tell you, they came to Memphis at one point, but never when I was here. But when I was in Kansas City, I managed these guys called the Batten Twins. I love those guys. We had a great. When I went to Kansas City, Bart and Brad. Brad. Yeah, and Brad, God bless him, he's passed away. But in Kansas City, they were the big babyface team. When I came into Kansas City in 86 or 87, whatever it was, they went to Bob Geigel and said, please turn us heel. We want to manage Bruno to manage us, whatever. And I mean, that was a big deal to me. Brand new guy to that territory. Two guys I never met before went to the owner and said, turn us. We want to be with him. And we had a great run against Rick McCord and Pork Chop Cash. Great run.
Yeah, right. Hey, Bruno,
we were doing okay there,
Hey, do you remember the address of the office in Kansas City?
910 Penn.
There you go, Gene. What did I say? I said the same thing, didn't I?
Yes.
Hey, Bruno. How do we not forget that?
I'm telling you, we had to go there every week to get our checks, and it was bad. The checks, but guys would hand us our checks sometimes and tell us, don't cash this right away.
Oh, that's great.
Yep. And you know what? Me and the Battens and Rick McCord and Pork Chop were drawing money. But then that Kansas City.
Hey, Bruno.
One guy that would kill every angle there was named Bulldog Bob Brown. He was the worst piece of crap that ever stepped inside a wrestling ring.
I knew you were going to say that. Hey, what other talent was there when y'all was there?
The Warlord, Mike George, Rufus R. Jones, Curtis Hughes, Rip Rogers, Rick McCord, Pork Chop Cash, myself, the Batten Twins, Hercules Hernandez.
The freight train.
Rufus R. Jones, the freight train. Great guy.
Yeah.
He's no longer with us. God bless him. Great guy.
Right. Hey, y'all had a lot of talent there.
Oh yeah, a lot of talent. But Bulldog Bob Brown would beat everybody, and he was horrible. And he killed it. I don't know what he was the worst. He was absolutely the worst.
He was a Canadian, wasn't he?
Yeah, he was Canadian that thought he knew. He looked like Sergeant Carter from Gomer Pyle. Probably worked.
Oh my God, he did.
And you know what? He was partners with Eddie, with my brother, for a bunch of matches.
I bet Eddie loved that.
What territory was that?
Kansas City.
Oh, I didn't know Eddie went there. It must have been a different time.
Yeah. Eddie went there right somewhere at the start.
Well, I don't know if you know this or not, Doug. You probably do. Of course, it was your dad, but you might have forgot. Right before Kansas City went out of business, Did you
My
know that
dad
Tommy,
booked.
your dad was supposed to come in and take over the booking?
Yeah, yeah, he did, and Bob Geigel wanted him to fly me and Eddie out there, and he flew me, Eddie, and Dutch out there for a big show. And man, I really loved that, just to go see my dad and everything, and it was great to do that. And that was when we was in Alabama, Bruno. We flew from Birmingham
Okay.
to Kansas City.
Yeah, because I said, oh my God, Tommy Gilbert, but then it didn't, I guess the territory shut down right after that.
Yeah, it shut down after that. But Bruno, it had been bad for a good while, and that's when they called my dad and asked him to book it and to see if he could get it back going. But it had done fell off too far by then.
Right. And I'm gonna tell you, another thing that hurt it in every territory, in all honesty, if I'm being honest, is at that time is when WWF was expanding.
Oh yeah, well that's what killed everybody, Bruno. You know that, and Gene sure knows it. But see, look, Gene, me and Bruno are just chatting back and forth. Ask Bruno another question, or me, or whatever you want to know.
Hey, it's Bob Smith, and guess what? The Outdated Wrestling Hour is now part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. But hey, no fear, you're still going to hear the unique guests, comedy, music, authors, journalists, funny people. Who knows who's going to end up on the Outdated Wrestling Hour? Remember, it's all new and all old. So check it out in the WrestleCopia Podcast Network and wherever you get your podcasts. Listen if you know what's good for you.
Hey everybody, Gene Jackson here, inviting you to check out the Retro Wrestling Review, where each week I'm joined by some great co-hosts who help me review classic episodes of USWA Championship Wrestling, and right now we are doing week-by-week reviews of 1993. But we don't just do reviews, sometimes we get a chance to interview some of the people who were there and lived it, plus do watch-alongs. It's a lot of fun, so check out new episodes that drop every Wednesday at WrestleCopia.com. And to find links to everything associated to the podcast, you can go to USWApodcast.com.
Well, when I think of Bruno, like when I first remember seeing Bruno in Memphis was managing Big Bubba and Goliath. And I always thought that visually that was just like the most heat, because here you had Bruno next to these two huge guys, and Bruno's just talking all this crap comfortably, because who's going to come mess with Bruno when he's got these two giants with him?
Right.
And I always just thought visually that was just like the greatest heel thing ever, because Bruno could just say anything he wanted, and he had these two enormous guys. But I know Fred Ottman was very, very green at the time, and Goliath was from Philadelphia. Tell us about those two guys, Bruno. How were they to work with at that point in their careers?
I mean, I like both of them. I still see Fred, on these conventions or whatever sometimes. I don't know whatever happened to Goliath. He was a nice guy.
That's what I was going to ask you, Bruno, or Gene. You probably know what Goliath.
Well, he turned back up. He showed up back up in USWA as Moondog Splat in like 93.
Yeah, that's the last time I've seen it. Yes.
And then once he disappeared from that, nobody seems to know where he went after that. I know he quit
it's
right as they were feuding with the Harlem Knights or whatever.
Parts unknown?
He slipped through the cracks.
Yeah, he went back to parts unknown and stayed there apparently.
Goliath, to me, is one of the guys that slipped through the cracks. Most of those big guys that were decent in the ring wound up in the nationwide, WWE or something. For some reason, I don't know what it was. I know he had a couple tryouts.
But I mean, was he a good worker, Bruno?
He was okay. I mean, he wasn't Shawn Michaels or nothing, but I mean, for his size, he was very.
But I mean, I thought Fred was good, but I mean, I couldn't remember if he was good or not.
Yeah, he was. He was above average for a big guy, to be honest with you.
Yeah,
some big guys just are terrible. Like I thought some of the big guys, like Bam Bam Bigelow, was probably the best big guy there ever was.
Oh, he's great. He was great. Yeah. I loved him.
And King Kong Bundy,
and super nice.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, King Kong Bundy, same way. I love Bundy. Oh my God, I love Bundy.
Bruno, I was the last one to book Bundy in Japan, right? No, I know you didn't know that. I know, but
no, I didn't know that.
I was the last person to ever book Bundy in Japan, and Bundy was a freaking huge star in Japan.
And he was like the world's largest stand-up comedian, right? Like Bundy was like, for everything I've been told, like Bundy was hilarious, like behind the scenes, and like just kept everybody cracking up.
Yeah,
yeah.
He was running
we
around.
were in some town one day up in New York area, spot show, and I was in the bathroom, and I'll never forget somebody tried to open the bathroom door, but I was in, had the door locked, and Bundy says, "Hey, leave that door alone. Bruno's in there blowing somebody."
Hey, Gene. Only things that the boys would say.
Right.
Oh, I mean, we
look,
got along so good.
And Bruno put his hands over his face.
Of course, when anybody in our business dies, we don't like it, even if we didn't care for the guy. But some of them hit us harder than others. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And the Bundy one, when he died, it hit me pretty good. You know, me and him and Lombardi traveled together quite a bit.
It's Bruno. Me and Gene have talked about this. I mean, me and you have lost so many guys that we care about in this business. People just don't understand or wouldn't understand, would they?
Right. Honestly, not. I mean, obviously Tommy and Eddie, of course, but even going past that, Brian Christopher, who was
right.
his whole life.
My best friend. I mean,
right.
And Brendan, we worked against each other about a year and a half, 2 years every night. And I mean, and I was telling Gene, we never even talked about wrestling. I mean, you know what I mean? I mean, we had fun and everything. I mean, it was just, I mean, I don't want to get sad here, but we've lost so many people. We've lost so many people.
And you know, I want to say this to you too. I just found this out the other day. I know he wasn't one of our favorite guys, but you remember Jeff Gaylord?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I don't know. I didn't even notice till the other day. Somebody said, "Oh, you ought to check this story out from the Denver newspaper." And I Googled it or whatever. You know, when he died, he was sleeping in a bus shelter in Denver. He was completely homeless and destitute and drugged out, and he was living in when he got out of prison, they put him in a place called the House of Hope. That people, you know, they kept you sober and gave you religion and fed you, and you know, you had like a little job or whatever. But he kept being drunk and on drugs and everything. So they told him he had to leave. And his brother tried to take him in, and he said Jeff wouldn't stay off the stuff. And he literally, you know, his bus shelters like in Memphis, the Mata, I guess in Denver, it's Data or whatever. Literally, here's a guy that was a pro football player, a pro wrestler, a collegiate athlete, dying as a homeless guy in a bus shelter. I mean, you know, he wasn't our favorite guy.
But well, I was going to say, the only thing, Bruno, I could never forgive him for jumping on my brother from the back. And, you know, I would never forgive anybody for doing anything to my family. But, I mean, I hate for people to pass away, but when you see somebody hitting your brother in the back of the head, and, you know, I just can't.
I didn't know about that. I didn't. Illuminate me. I don't know anything about that. I never heard that.
Gene, you want to tell him?
Well, I mean, you know the story better than I do, but down in Global, or in Dallas during Global, Jeff jumped Eddie from behind in the dressing room. And now there's a couple of different versions of why he did it, but he jumps Eddie. Doug comes in and he's drinking a Coke in a glass bottle, sees this, busts Jeff in the face with his glass bottle, and just beats him all the way out the building. But the story is, Jeff claims that some promoter offered him like $1,000 to jump Eddie because he was mad at Eddie over some promoter from up north. I forget what the guy's name is. But nobody can really corroborate if that was true or not. Then he changed his story years later because he tried to say that it was all a work, that he didn't really jump Eddie, that they were going to say he jumped Eddie and they were going to split the money. But then the story came out, I heard, that after all that blew over, the next time Eddie saw him, Eddie was like, "Hey, dummy, you could have just come up and told me some guy was offering you $1,000 and we could have worked the scuffle in the dressing room and we could have split the money. Like, why would you attack me from behind?" And Jeff's
well,
like,
see, no wonder I never heard it. I never worked for Global. I didn't know. Damn, that's the first I heard that story.
Yeah.
And I'm sure I screwed it all up, Doug.
It was a bad deal, but I mean, Eddie never talked to him after.
Okay, I didn't figure. But that's like I say, there's a million versions of that story.
After that, but Bruno, I walked out of the room, and right here's the thing, how Eddie stayed in shape and everything. And me and Eddie just worked about a 35-minute match, and I was blowed up as could be. And I sat down, and when Eddie was coming back, which I was the heel and Eddie was babyface, and I heard something out in the hall. I heard Eddie's voice, and when I turned the corner, Gaylord was punching him in the back of the head. And when he did, I grabbed Eddie and pulled him out of the way and busted the bottle right across his eye. And
good for you.
It busted his eye. But, I mean, it's just, I just can't ever forgive somebody. That'd be like if somebody done something to you, I'd jump on them. My friend.
And I would do the same thing. You and me's family. Let me tell you something. I hate I even brought his name up because I didn't know that. But I'm going to tell you this. My whole point of the story, before I even knew what y'all just told me, was that here's a guy that Gaylord, as you even put that terrible thing he did aside, he wasn't the smartest tool in the shed anyway, if y'all remember.
No.
He wasn't very, but for a guy that had the potential, the body, and he wasn't a bad looking guy. Whatever. End up
he had
homeless
the
in the
look.
street. Yeah, the look, end up homeless in the street. That's
he got arrested twice for robbing the same bank. He robbed the same branch of the same bank multiple times and went to prison. Like, how do you rob the same bank more than once?
I mean, did y'all hear how he got arrested the first time?
Please tell it.
Okay, like here next to my phone, my desk, I have a notepad, like I wrote down earlier. Right here, like Doug Gilbert, 7 p.m. I write, I didn't want to forget the whatever. So anyways, Gaylord had a notepad like this next to his phone, and he had wrote on it, "Give me all your money and nobody gets hurt." And he brought that note to the bank. Well, he did it with the pen, and when the cops came to his apartment or whatever, you could see the indentations of it on the next sheet. That's the true story.
See, Bruno, I've never heard nothing about any of. I mean, I knew you robbed banks and went to prison, but I never heard any of the stories. Did you, Gene?
Yeah, that's the true story.
I had, in recent years, I heard it like it had made like I used to have those bits on the radio like Dumbest Criminals and stuff like that. That he had made a bunch of those shows back in the day when all that.
Yeah,
happened.
and I'll tell you another thing. The second time he robbed the same bank after he got out of prison for the first one, he had put pillows or something under his shirt and then put a fake beard on to make him look like a big fat guy, so they couldn't identify him.
So they wouldn't be looking for him; they'd be looking for some fat bearded guy. My ass would have went to jail if I'd have been around there.
Yeah. So what he did was he did all that with the fake, fat thing or whatever. He drove his own effing vehicle with the license plate right there. They just wrote his license plate down. They went to his apartment and got him. They found the fucking freaking beard and the fat suit or whatever. It was all in the apartment. He wasn't no Tony Soprano, that's for sure.
No. Hey, I think we've talked about him.
All right, we spent enough time dunking on Jeff Gaylord. We'll move on.
Hey guys, Ray Russell here, curator of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, inviting you guys to listen to many of the programs here as part of the WrestleCopia brand, including, but not limited to, the Wrestling Memory Grenade, currently covering the 1988 and the WWF project. You can also listen to the Regional Wrestling Podcast, where we talk the territories, whether it's Jamie Ward with Georgia 81, Roman Gomez with the UWF in 1986, or Gene Jackson covering Memphis in 85. 3 projects going on right now over there at Regional Wrestling. You can also listen to the Wrestling Stoop with the legend himself, Bob Roop. Bob goes back in time each and every week, covering not just his career, but countless stories and interactions with hundreds of wrestling names spanning his 2 decades in the business. But that's not all. You can also check out the Puro Wrestling Academy with the professor of Puro Resu, Mr. Dan Ginnity. Dan and I go back in time and cover the history of Japanese professional wrestling in the English language. And you can listen to all of those shows and more, all part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network, located over at WrestleCopia.com. That's WrestleCopia.com, and anywhere your podcast streaming needs are met, from Apple to Spotify, Pocket Cast, and beyond. And while you're at it, why not subscribe to our social media guys for all the latest goings on here at the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Plus, I'm constantly adding old school video clips and pictures from throughout wrestling history. You can follow us over on X, formerly Twitter, at Wrestling Grenade. That's at RASSLIN Grenade. Also, follow and like me, Facebook.com/Wrestling Grenade. And why not subscribe to YouTube.com/Wrestling Grenade. So if you're looking to support that next up-and-coming podcast brand, please consider making it WrestleCopia.
Speaking of guys we lost, not to make this a sad thing, but me and Doug has talked about this gentleman at least once during one of our episodes. But he's a guy that you worked with and that I thoroughly enjoyed a lot of the times you guys worked together. Scott Bowden. What's some of your memories of working with Scott Bowden, Bruno?
Well, I mean, I have nothing against him as a person, but as far as they had me wrestling here in the ring a lot of times. Now, I'm not no damn
Bruno
or Eddie Gilbert or Shawn Michaels, but I know what the hell I'm doing with my limitations. I've had easier bar fights than a match. Here's a guy that can't work, couldn't work, but thought he could work.
Bruno, that was when you was a babyface, right?
Yeah, I was the babyface. But yes, working with Scott Bowden, Jesus Christ, that made working with Howard Finkel almost like I was in the ring with Dan Gum. Bret Hart, Scott Bowden. God, and it's a sad thing because his sister died of a drug overdose, and he was always anti-drug. I'm against drugs. I hate drugs. Then he moved to Los Angeles to become a Hollywood script writer or something, and died of drugs. And that's what's a sad thing.
Wasn't it
he died of a
fentanyl?
overdose.
Cocaine or fentanyl or something? Which, I mean, Bruno, you managed me and Eddie, and Scott did also, and everything. And I mean, me and Gene's talked before about the different styles and everything. But, man, it just, when I heard that about him dying, I just couldn't believe it because he was always the straight guy and everything.
That's what I thought too. That's what really shocked me. And don't get me wrong, I didn't dislike him. I just liked working with him, but I didn't dislike him. He was a sharp guy. I liked him. Okay. I thought.
That's what I told Gene. He was a really smart guy, and everything. I mean, he was really smart, but he would try to. I told Gene that they would tell him not to do something at times, and he'd do it anyway, and they'd fire him, and then they'd bring him back a few weeks later.
Yeah, exactly.
But I mean, when you don't have to pay somebody something, it's it's easy to bring them back.
Right. But I mean, yeah, that angle I worked with him went on and on. I was like, Jesus Christ, what are y'all trying to do to me? Ruin my career? Because I mean, he couldn't work. He would punch me in the ear or hit me. I mean, God, it was just awful. But I mean, God bless him.
He must have never had anybody tell him the stories that my dad and brother, when they was training me, no ears, no nose, no mouth, and everything. Right. But I mean, that's the guys that couldn't work. If you could work, you could do that. But I mean, not ears, but everything else. But I mean, now Scott.
Well, I'm gonna tell you, talk about that. Years ago, I'm gonna tell y'all this is. If you remember this, Doug, I don't think you were in the business yet, but I'm sure you was watching it. Remember there was a guy named Jerry Bryant. They brought this girl named Emily Arthur to work with me. You remember that?
Hey,
yes.
Yeah, and Bruno, you know who broke in with Jerry Bryant, who trained together with Jerry Bryant? Jerry Lawler had a guy, which was Jerry Bryant, and Jerry Jarrett had a guy. And you don't know who that guy was?
No.
Tommy Rich.
Oh, really? Okay.
That they trained together and broke in at the same time.
Okay.
But Bryant
both great.
Well, Jerry Bryant was Lawler's guy, and Tommy Rich was Jerry Jarrett's guy.
Okay. But yeah, Bryant was a good worker and a good guy.
Oh yeah. Hey, my dad loved him too, Bruno.
Say it again.
Jerry. I said my dad loved Jerry Bryant.
Oh, he was a great guy. Great guy. But he brought in this girl named Emily Arthur, good-looking girl. They did a deal where they pretend she was out of the audience. They were picking somebody to wrestle me. So they taught her a few different moves, would have her match, whatever. But she couldn't work. They always put me with people that can't work. And I mean, so we're in Jonesboro one night, and I'm supposed to go over. She put her knees right in my shoulder sockets, and I couldn't kick out. And they had to count me out 1, 2, 3. So we got the and Marlon and them got all over me. You don't ever. And I didn't know they were ribbing me on the square. Hey, you can't let some girl beat you. Let me tell you, you're in Nashville with her tonight. We're going to tell her she's going over. You're going to beat her. You get in the ring, just pin her and beat her, blah, blah, blah. So anyway, we get up to Nashville that night, and Calhoun was there, refereeing in Nashville that night, probably because Lawler was on the card.
Exactly.
So we're in there. I'm wrestling the girl, and Calhoun goes, Jesus Christ, Bruno, you're supposed to beat her. Just beat her. I says, fuck Calhoun, I can't. I kept trying to pin her. I said, fuck it, I'm just going to lay down. I could not beat this girl. She wasn't a mean girl or nothing. She just didn't know how to work. And she freaking beat me 2 nights in a row.
Oh, that's funny.
In those days, like, to what extent, like somebody like that, they're kind of bringing in peripherally like that, like to what extent did they get smartened up and trained for that matter?
Little or none.
Well, I was going to say, Brenda, what did you say her name was? Emily Arthur, huh?
Yeah, Emily Arthur.
And she hadn't been trained any, huh?
Well, I'm sure Barry Bryan showed her how to do something or whatever,
He worked on some pin maneuvers with her, I'm sure, but
that's probably right.
But you
got stuck with a lot of people like that, right?
What other women did you work with, Bruno?
Stacy, of course, Lawler's third wife. Miss Texas, Jacqueline Moore.
Right.
Worked with
well, I was going to say, now that had to be a rough match, didn't it?
Jesus Christ, I used to say to her, are you freaking mad at me or something? What have I done? Jesus Christ, it's a work. I'll sell for you. And I don't like to use the F words. I won't use it, but y'all know what I mean. I used to tell her, the only reason I got in this business is because it was, you know what I'm saying? Damn. I mean, talk about somebody stiff and snug. You don't have to make me sell. You don't have to. I know how to sell. That's one thing I do know how to do is sell. You don't have to beat the shit out of me. I worked with Alundra Blaze. I loved her. She was great. Medusa. She was good to me in the ring. We always got along really good.
Bruno, that was my sister-in-law for a while, right?
Well, I know, and I'm going to tell you, Doug, and this is a little sad, but I have to straight. I'm the one that told her about Eddie's passing. We were in Birmingham, Alabama for WWF.
Is that right?
At the Boutwell Auditorium that day. And I'm the one that, because obviously being a Memphis guy, I'm the one that got the messages about our dear Eddie's passing. And when she came in, I knew that she was married to him at one point. And I'm the one that broke it to her.
Wow.
And, even though they weren't together no more, she still cared for him. It wasn't no hateful thing. You would know more than me, but I don't think it was no hateful thing. It was just they didn't work out, basically.
Right. Well, I mean, what does in the wrestling business as far as guys and women that marry? I mean, there's very seldom that, and two, when a guy's a booker like Eddie is, and the women are in the business, you know what I'm saying? That's where I think the cross is. But I mean, she was always good to me, Bruno. We go, like when Global was going in Dallas, me and her get in the ring and work, and she worked like a man. I mean, me and her would do spots like, you know, I mean, she done all the Japanese stuff, and I went to Japan and everything, and man, she was real cool to me always. She was my favorite of Eddie's wives.
And she was hugely over in Japan, right?
Oh, she was over. She was like the most over woman in Japan.
Right.
Yeah, so I was going with her.
Hey, let's talk about something happy now. What else you got, Gene, for Bruno?
Well, all right. Well, since we brought up Alundra Blaze, I've had people tell me whenever you talk to Bruno, they want to hear your stories about managing Bertha Faye in WWF. How was that?
Bertha Faye? 100% negative. 100%
kind of felt like that was the case.
God bless her. She's no longer with us.
Was that Bertha Faye? That was the one that I was with in Puerto Rico? Wasn't she the big woman?
No, she wasn't from Puerto Rico. She's from Calgary.
Well, she was from Calgary, but I worked with her. She was in Puerto Rico with me, I think.
Oh, you was okay. I didn't know she was there. I didn't know.
Yeah. And what else did
you
work?
Stand.
What else did you work by? For some reason,
Ripper Singh or something like that.
Yeah, something like. But they put her with me in Puerto Rico, and I thought, oh my God. And the biggest reel was Tony Anthony and Brian Lee was the Hollywood Blondes, and they would tell her that she needed to tell me stuff because I always liked for people to tell me stuff, and we'd be at the ring, and she'd be hollering stuff at me at the ring, and I thought, what is this woman doing? And then we'd go to the back, and she'd start doing it again, and I told them guys, I said, what's wrong with this woman? And they was telling her to do it. What a freaking rib on me.
That was always so funny to me. The dirty white boy as a Hollywood blonde down there is good stuff.
Yeah. And I mean, and they drew money. I mean, and Bruno knows Brian Lee real well. I mean, and Bruno, have you heard from Brian Lee or know where he's at or anything?
No, I don't have a clue. I've had several people ask me, even at the other day at that thing in Jackson. I don't know whatever happened to him. I don't know what happened.
Well, he had a stroke, and
I didn't know that.
And here a while back, Jim, did you hear that?
Yeah, what was it, about 3 months ago?
Yeah, about 3 months ago he had a stroke. I always liked Brian. He was always cool to me. Did you like
me too? Well, I was in Alabama with him too. I forgot to mention him when we were there. He was part of the crew. I mean, he was like a smart ass guy, but in a good way. You know, like he was a funny.
And you're right. He was kind of like that, but it was kind of like ribbing, I think, Bruno. That's the way I took it anyway. But I mean, like,
he wasn't a dickhead. He was just a smart ass.
Kind of like a little air to him or something like that.
Yeah. I always got along real good with him. Yeah, I hate he had a stroke. Shit, he's younger than us.
Oh, you ain't kidding. And the funny thing, he had a Rottweiler. You remember the Rottweiler he had? He'd bring the Rottweiler to the matches, and in Nashville, he'd tell that, I can forget what his name was, but he'd tell the dog to watch me, and the dog would just look at me and growl, and I was scared to move. I thought, oh my God, this dog's gonna kill me.
I don't remember that. I swear I don't. I'll be damned. You know who else was a damn good guy? A lot of people don't like him, but I always did. Was Scott Steiner.
Oh, Scott was always really nice to me. Which, I mean, you know, Eddie was one that Eddie was one that brought him to WCW.
Oh, Eddie brought him to WCW too?
Yeah.
Oh, good. I remember Scott Steiner like the Killed. Now, this guy was a prick, and I'm sorry. I have to say, he might have been your friend. I don't know. Scott Steiner like the Killed Gary Young one night in the ring. And Gary Young had it.
Gary Young?
Remember Gary Young?
Gorgeous Gary Young, yeah.
he was a prick with a capital P. I'm sorry. He was a guy that would rib you in shitty ways. He's the guy that would be cocky and arrogant. I mean, he was a prick. He was a prick. I can't stress it enough. He's the one that would, a rib is, Doug's in the shower. I had one of his shoes or something. Gary Young would put Ben Gay in your underwear or throw your shoes in the toilet or, whatever. He just, it wasn't funny.
Right.
He told me one night, go Scott Steiner, he needs out of work. So Scott Steiner said, go tell Gary Young he needs to learn how to shoot. He tied him up like a daggum pretzel. Almost killed him.
Oh, my God.
I mean, Gary Young was always a jerk. Why do you have to be mean to people? He was just a jerk.
You don't have to, and you shouldn't be.
Right. There was no reason for it. Well, he told me, go tell Scott Steiner to learn how to work. Scott says, go tell him to learn how to shoot. And then Gary Young come to me. Why the hell did you tell him that? I said, because you told me to tell him that. That's where I'm going to get you. Get it. Akio Sato, one of my dearest friends in the business. Akio Sato said, Gary Young, you mess with my friend Bruno, that means you mess with me. You leave him alone. You in the wrong. And that was it. Sato tells you that, that's it.
Bruno, I love Akio Sato. I went to Japan with him about 20 times.
What a great guy.
Oh, great. I mean, intelligent, a smart guy. And he lived in Kansas City or something, right, Bruno?
Yeah, Kansas City.
Yeah. It's funny how many of those guys stayed there.
Yeah. And I'm going to tell you, Sato's the one that gave me the little gimmick. I'm downtown Bruno. He's the one that gave me downtown good-looking Bruno. That one day, we were doing, for some reason, me and Tojo was co-managing him and somebody I was partners with. That might have been Hickerson, I don't remember. And we all were doing our interview, and Sato goes, yes, I'd be at ring with downtown good-looking Bruno. I never forgot that. I've been using it ever since.
Can't beat that.
Yeah, I love Sato. Loved Sato.
Hey, Bruno. Me and Jim will know that who's making your chicken that you're eating during the show.
Oh, I don't make them out. No, there's a place here in Walls called Old School Hot Wings. That's where I get my chicken wings. Walls, Mississippi. Go to Old School Hot Wings on Highway 61 and tell them Downtown Bruno sent you.
I got you. Good deal. We'll do that. Hell, I'll just come and get you. Me and you'll go.
For everybody listening, Doug and Downtown Bruno are going to be a part of the Show Me Showdown Throwdown on Saturday, October the 12th at the American Legion building. Not only is Doug and Bruno going to be there, but Ricky Morton and the King Jerry Lawler is going to be there as well, guys. It should be a good one.
Shoot.
It's going to be great. I can't wait to hang out again with my good friend and meet all the fans. So, it's October the 12th. Kennett, Missouri, the old American Legion building that we used to be there for the USWA. That's a big deal. And then October 19th, me and Doug and the rest of the Memphis legendary crew is going to be at the Liberty Bowl Stadium for the Simmons Liberty Bowl Stadium before the Memphis State or the University of Memphis football game against the University of North Texas. We're going to have a meet and greet and matches before the big football game where we're going to root Memphis State, University of Memphis on the
Hey, Bruno, Tiger Lane. The ring will be set up on Tiger Lane. So we'll be right
Tiger
there.
Lane.
You'll be there. I'll be there. The King will be there. Tommy Rich will be there. There's going to be a lot of guys from the past that'll be there. And last year it was great. And I'm figuring this year it'll be even better.
I love meeting people at these conventions. It's wonderful. This convention this past weekend with Randy Hales and all of us, I give Randy thumbs up. He did a great job. Great job. It was a wonderful weekend, as you and
What?
Y'all were both there. It was great.
Bruno, what about
fog?
Right. What about Danny Davis? What about getting to see Danny Davis? What about getting to see? What about getting to see?
Tony Anthony.
Well, I mean, yeah, Tony and everybody. But I was trying to think of Dean Hill, remember the announcer at Louisville Gardens, Dean Hill, Bruno.
Yeah, Dean Hill. I didn't even recognize him because he shaved off his mustache.
Yeah. Oh, I love.
Oh, I bet I walked past him a bunch of times. I didn't know it without the mustache.
Did you not see him?
Yeah. No, I didn't know he was there.
Yeah,
I would love to have met him.
And
wow.
I tried to get him to come in the back, and he wouldn't.
Oh my gosh.
He's a really good guy. And we've seen Pat Rose. We've seen which Pat Rose, somebody we hadn't seen in years. Of course, Tom Pritchard. We're all friends with him.
Right.
Just Coco Beware, Reggie
right.
B5, just Thomas Falk.
Yeah.
All
the guys we traveled with and worked with, Bruno, that was so cool. That's so cool to me. I mean, and everything. But like I said, Dean Hill, I love Dean Hill. And Louisville was like kind of I love the Louisville Gardens.
Yeah.
Did you, Bruno? I mean, I love the Louisville.
Oh my God. You know what? My two favorite places besides the Coliseum, of course, in Memphis, Louisville and Nashville.
Right.
Evansville,
yeah.
shows always good, something bad. Louisville and Nashville were always the hottest daggum.
Hey, Gene started to laugh because I kind of said the same thing on an episode before, and I felt bad about it and everything.
He said, "You can't put that out, Gene. I can't say nothing bad about Evansville." And I said, "All right, we'll just let Bruno do it when he comes on."
I mean, I think the reason they gave us our paychecks on Wednesdays in Evansville so show up.
But anyway, hey, Gene, what have you got? Some more questions you'd like to ask Bruno?
Well, we'll have Bruno on again. We're about to our limit of where we usually try to end these, so we'll cut this one off. But we talked about where you guys are going to be, and you guys will get to hang out again soon. And
like you said, Bruno, we might just stop by your place one day. I'll call you and stop by and take a tour around your museum.
Buddy, you're always welcome. You know your family, Doug. I'll give you a key to my house.
I know you would. But anyway, hey, Bruno, we love you, man. And I sure appreciate you agreeing to come on here with us. And, if you ever need anything, holler at me.
Hey, I had a blast. Hey, and the $5,000 y'all are giving me has nothing to do with it. It's strictly because I know.
Kayfabe.
Not a thing to do with it, right? Now we have to pay everybody $6,000.
Yeah, I was going to say, don't go putting that out there because Tommy's going to call us and go, "Hey, wait a minute."
Yeah. There you go. But anyway, hey, Bruno.
And Gene, you call me tomorrow and I'll do your USWA podcast.
Awesome. I will, man. I sure will.
Hey, Bruno.
All right, everybody. Hey, love both y'all. God bless you and stay in touch.
Love you too, buddy. We'll talk to you soon.
Hey, one more thing. I can't end a podcast without saying this.
You say it.
It's like Mama says, it bees that way sometimes.
You're the man, Bruno.
Now, by the way, before we get out of here, I just want to let everybody know, if you have an upcoming wrestling event, autograph signing, collector's show, Comic Con, or any event or booking that you would like to inquire about the services of Dangerous Doug Gilbert and or Tommy Wildfire Rich, just send us an email at DougGilbertPodcast@Outlook.com, and someone will get back to you as soon as possible to find out more information about your event, and we'll do our best to make that happen for you. Also, if you're interested in advertising your event, business, or product to the listeners of Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert, as well as across all our social media platforms, you can send in those inquiries to DougGilbertPodcast@Outlook.com as well, and we'll get back to you about trying to make that happen also. So remember, check out DougGilbertPodcast.com. There you can find links to all things related to this podcast and to Doug himself. There are links to the Dangerous Conversations Facebook page where we post all sorts of great content regularly involving Doug and his whole family. We've got the Dangerous Conversations X, formerly known as Twitter. Plus, we've got the Dangerous Doug Gilbert Facebook and X pages as well, where you can keep up with everything Doug has going on personally, like upcoming shows, signings, conventions, you name it. You can keep up with all of it by following Doug on social media. He appreciates the support, and if you really want to show your support, check out the Gilbert Family Pro Wrestling Tees store, featuring a tremendous array of T-shirts featuring Doug, Eddie, and their father, the late, great Tommy Gilbert as well. And if you've enjoyed the show that you just listened to, please subscribe, rate, and review the show on whatever platform you're listening to it at. We greatly appreciate it. It helps a lot towards building up the podcast in the future. And if you want to just not hear about the Gilbert family, if you want to actually see their matches, promos, and angles from over the years, you can check out the YouTube channel at Retro Wrestling Archive. That's youtube.com/@Retro Wrestling Archive. But you don't have to remember that. All you got to remember is DougGilbertPodcast.com. And there's a tons of matches featuring Doug and Eddie and Tommy Gilbert and Tommy Wildfire Rich that you heard on this podcast. There's a whole playlist of his matches as well. You can just go and check out the playlist for everybody. Plus, there's tons and tons of old school wrestling content, plus almost every episode of USWA Championship Wrestling from 1990 through the end of 1997, plus multiple years of the CWA Memphis Wrestling throughout the 80s. So make sure you check all that out over at the YouTube page. Plus, don't forget you can find all things related to my popular Retro Wrestling Review USWA podcast at uswapodcast.com. And last but certainly not least, we are proud to be a part of the WrestleCopia Podcast Network. Go on over to WrestleCopia.com to check out all the great pro wrestling related podcasts and other content that our friend Ray Russell provides over there. You'll be glad you did. And we will catch you here next week for another episode of Dangerous Conversations with Dangerous Doug Gilbert.
This is Wrestling Nostalgia, the podcast that dives into wrestling history. Hey, wrestling fans, I'm Dave Dynasty, and if you enjoy podcasts that are knowledgeable and history-driven, then Wrestling Nostalgia is for you. With great guests and fun interviews, there are over 200 episodes in our archives. We chat with several first-time guests and often cover topics not discussed on other podcasts. Look up Wrestling Nostalgia on your favorite podcast platform and visit all of our links at linktree/WrestlePod. That is linktr.ee/RASSLEPOD. And remember, wherever you go, whatever you do, be good, be safe, and keep on growing.